Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Formula. I am Aaron Loomis. With me today is June Liu and Seth Geis. How you guys doing?
Doing well, man.
Ready to learn. Ready
Man,
to have a cigar.
this has got an aroma to it,
Yeah, it's got some stank to it.
dude. It's got some manure.
Yeah, it's got that horse. It's got that fresh horse blanket on it.
Smells like home, man.
All right. So for those of you who are not familiar with The Formula, this is a concept that we launched probably like 18 months ago. And it's been a struggle for us to try to, keep this thing going. But I think it was a great idea. And we finally got round 2 going on. So this show is around tobacco itself. Very detailed, very geeky. So if you've been missing out on getting your knowledge piqued by tobacco discussions, this is going to be the show for you. So I'm going to introduce our guest without further ado. We are very pleased to welcome Mr. Ralph Montero from Alec Bradley. Ralph, welcome to The Formula.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure being here.
Thank you very much. This was a long time in the making. We were talking, I think, a few months back, and it finally worked out that all the schedules now, you weren't having to shuffle between 4 different factories and in Florida. So we had a chance to kind of get you on the air. So it was great.
Yeah. And this break with this pandemic we're dealing with, it kind of gave us the opportunity to be home more than we normally are.
Yep, exactly. So before we get into the real detailed tobacco talk, I want to ask you a couple of general questions, kind of a little bit about your background. Can you give us some info on kind of how you got into cigars and into tobacco to begin with?
Yes, well, my father and my uncle were in the tobacco business in Cuba in the 50s. They would buy from the growers and broker or sell to the chinchales or the small tobacco cigar rolling companies in Cuba. Up until the revolution, where my uncle's company was taken by Fidel. We left Cuba. My uncle left Cuba early, like in 1963, and we left in 1970 when I was 5 years old. And my uncle, who stayed in the business even out of Cuba in Colombia and then later on in Tampa, opened up a company called Tropical Tobacco, who now is Casa Fernandez or Aganorsa, in 1978. And I graduated high school in 1982. My uncle needed someone to work in the warehouse. I said, "Hey, guess what? I need a job." So, walked in on a. I think I graduated on a Friday. Walked in on a Monday. I was 17 years old and started in the warehouse, thinking this is a temporary job. Not for me.
Right.
And I started getting really into cigars and we were growing the company and so on. And, here I am 30 some odd years later, still in the business. And it's one of the greatest industries to be in, to be honest with you.
Yep, absolutely. So can you tell us a little bit about what your role is now with Alec Bradley?
Well, I'm the executive vice president of Alec Bradley, other than the 24 hats that we all wear, being a small company. I do travel extensively to the factories to look over production, create blends, collaborate with those very, very important people down there to learn new product, tobacco processing, fermentation, curing barns, the whole 9 yards. And we kind of manage the business here. Like I was telling you earlier, you manage the business here and then you go enjoy yourself down at the factories and have fun with tobacco, which is the passion, really.
Right.
And that's basically my role. Alec Bradley everyone wears a lot of hats and myself included.
Nice. So we have 3 different Puritos that we are going to be smoking tonight. Can
Correct.
you tell us a little bit about what each of these are?
Okay, so I want to start with, there's 3, these are what we call Puritos, which is a pure little cigar. So it's just the tobacco. It's one priming from one region, and each of these are basically to try what that tobacco gives you. the characteristics of that tobacco. The first one that we're going to smoke, number 2, is
don't tell us what it is yet. Do you use
okay,
this?
great.
Do you use this in? This is in some of your blends, right?
All of these are used in some of our blends, some more extensively than others.
Okay.
But yes, all these, these 3 of many different tobaccos that we use in our blends. But yeah, all of them. Some, like there's one that a particular one here that was used in a good portion, probably 4 or 5 of our blends.
Okay.
One is used, depends. I mean, it definitely is something that we use extensively. We have, as you know, hundreds of different tobaccos to choose from, whether it's different primings, different regions, different seed variations. And that's what makes this fun.
So do you have a guess, Seth, or something?
Well, I do have a guess. I do have a guess, but I'm going to work my way.
Yeah, but he's got to talk about it. He can't wait all night for you to come up with what you think it is.
I thought we'd talk about it, and then
okay.
Is this Honduran Corojo?
It is not.
Damn.
Yeah, before I said that, I was gonna be like, Seth, I bet you $100 you can't guess it.
Told you I was wrong, man. This is spicy. That's spicy. What is this?
This is a Condega Viso, which is one of the growing regions in Nicaragua. You have the 3 major growing regions, actually 4. You have Ometepe, you have Jalapa, Esteli, and Condega. This is Condega. It's a Viso, which is a medium priming. Condega is a little bit rocky. It's like in the intermediary between Jalapa and Esteli kind of thing. And Ometepe is off on its own with very unique characteristics.
Was there I'd imagine you picked these 3 Peritos specifically and for a reason. We could talk about that now, or we could talk about it after we smoked through all of them.
Yeah, we can talk about it. I chose these 3 particularly because it shows 3 specific regions that we use, and hopefully you can get an idea of the variety and the flavor differences between. 2 of them are from Nicaragua, and 1 is from Honduras. So it's just to vary the flavor profile to see so you can see the differences of any particular product from whether it's Jamastran or Olancho, Condega, Jalapa, anything like that. And that's the beauty of what we do, is that even with the same varietal, you're growing in Jalapa, which has a different soil contact, different microclimate, and you use the same seed in Esteli or in Jamastran, and you get different characteristics. And that's the beauty of our business, is that, as a chef would love to have a cupboard full of ingredients, and that's what we do. And we have these choices of great tobaccos that we can combine and give new flavors or different flavors and different profiles to our consumer.
This tobacco really is like, it's delivering a lot of spice and flavor. There's not too much body, I feel like, to this, but there's a lot of spice to it. Are you using this? I mean, what's a case where you're using this like in the filler blend?
Okay, so depending on what you want to accomplish, like, Esteli is very, you see the soil, it's like a very rich, dark soil. So depending on what you want to accomplish, sometimes you want something that's a little bit more medium, where you want to add something that's going to tone down flavor. Even though this has some spice, in the overall flavor, it's pretty straightforward. I'm assuming that's what you're getting. So you can balance certain blends using this. It's something that you can tone down, so to speak, in the flavor, but still not lose some of the spiciness is one thing you can say, or some of the complexities of it. So it still adds, and that's what we basically are trying to do, is create blends that complement each other. That's one of the things that, a lot of questions is what's the most important part of a cigar, Is it the wrapper? Is it the binder? Is it the filler? It's neither one of those. It's the balance that you have to achieve amongst those components. And if you don't achieve a balance where you have one tobacco dominating the blend or one tobacco not giving enough, and that's really from my point of view, the success is where you have a balance of all these flavors working together to accomplish a certain profile, a certain complexity. And that's what really is, to me, the ultimate goal. Whether the profile is different or the strength level is different, you still want some sort of balance in that experience.
Going back to how you classified number 2 as calling it Condega Viso, right? So
Yes.
when you say that, so is that when you say that it's Condega Viso or Esteli Ligero or whatever, right? Like you're basically kind of saying priming and where it's from, like what region of what the country is from, right?
Well, the priming. Okay, so the priming is a product of going to the fields and picking your primings, priming 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. You still have to select the tobacco based on texture and thickness. So we don't really classify by priming, because tobacco, a plant is, you can get something that's a little thicker on your second priming and something that's a little thinner on your fourth priming, depending on the plant, depending on the position, even in the field. So after the first fermentation, which is a soft fermentation, where you're able to then select the tobacco for further fermentation, everything is selected by feel. So you have your thin, which is your secos, your medium is your visos, and then the really thick parts are your ligeros. So the primings are a way to organize the growing and the picking and so on, up until you get to a certain point in fermentation where now you want to really select for texture. And visos, that's why we go from primings straight into either seco, viso, or ligero, because that is selected by a group of mostly women. And now we know that this stack of tobacco has the same feel, the same thickness, and it can convert. So it's not like if we say, okay, this is fourth priming, we're going to use fourth priming. No, that's already been, that's one of the first processes. Now we're going into 3 distinct levels or thicknesses. And it's the same thing in wrapper. Ligeros are not normally used in wrapper, but the fermentation process is way long. I mean, you can have, sometimes you put a seed in the ground today that you don't see in a cigar for 5 years. So it's usually secos and visos in wrappers, secos and visos in binders, and the ligeros are usually limited or used mostly, not necessarily always, but mostly in the filler. So think those, in those 3 terms rather than priming once we get to this level.
Okay. That's very unique perspective, because when you read what cigar brands publish of what the cigar makeup is, right, it's always from the characteristic of this is the wrapper, binder, filler. And especially when you get to like binder and filler, like it's super generic. They'll just say it's from this country, right? It's like it's from Nicaragua. And I've always assumed they do that because you don't want to give out your recipe. But I also heard different blenders say, hey, even if you give out the recipe, how much of whatever leaves you use, the placement of leaves and all that matters a lot, that it's actually pretty hard to replicate the exact blend of a particular cigar. I don't know.
I can tell you that, okay, so this particular tobacco has Condega Esteli, Hamastron, and whatever, something else. But you don't know if I have 10% of this, 25% of the other, and it's what you're saying. It's impossible to replicate just by knowing what types of tobacco, because it's infinite. What you can do with those 4 tobaccos is in the percentage. You can have equal amounts of 25%. You can have, 33, 33, and then change something up. You can have 30, 30, 20, 20. So you can really mix those up in a large variety of ways within reason, and have a completely different cigar. So just because I tell you, here are the three components, not to say that you can't replicate it. You can probably, depending on the palate, in your palate, someone's palate, because we've replicated other tobaccos, other cigars, simply by trial and error, and we get really close to replicating a blend. It's not impossible, especially knowing where, certain manufacturers, where they grow, where they buy, and you can more or less know, well, he uses this a lot or that a lot and this a lot. But honestly, we're all trying to create unique things, not replicate what's in the marketplace already. So, but yes, it's not giving away the farm if I tell you that we have particular tobacco in a blend. Or now we do the same thing. We normally just say this is a Nicaraguan wrapper with a binder from Honduras and a second binder from here, and we do kind of talk about country just like most do, simply because it's not necessary in a way to go too specific. Ultimately, what's going to happen? They're going to try the cigar, they're going to like it, and they're not going to like it.
Yeah. It's not like they're going to be like, oh, man, this is, Nicaraguan Corojo? Oh, man, I only smoke Criollos, man. I ain't going down the Corojo road.
Yes. So, the bottom line is, go out and try your cigars. That's the greatest thing that we have in this business, is that you can go out and experiment, and you don't know what you're going to discover. You may discover something really unique, and if you try different cigars all the time, I really encourage everyone to go out there and say, I'm going to try this, and don't be afraid of trying a cigar. You never know, you might create, find one of your favorites.
You guys have always done a good job too and I know you have a lot of like Honduran and Nicaraguan tobacco in your blends, but there's not this consistency. It's not like always Nicaraguan or always a Nicaraguan binder and a Honduran, wrapper or something like. You guys are always trying out new things with that. You're really trying everything around.
Well, we're trying to, find new things, new flavors, new suppliers, like Max, our original Max, and even now you have Colombia in it, which, Cubita, which is a very unique one. So you have Colombia, you have Hamastron, you have all these different tobaccos in our Max. We have Panama in our black market. We went Van Halen there with Panama, so it was. And it's not exactly. So there are a lot of different tobaccos available to us, and we try to create something that the consumers say, wow, that's different, or that's unique, and I really enjoy this.
Now, do you ever, when you come across like tobacco, Panamanian tobacco, do you, you're trying out the tobacco, do you ever say, this is what I want to begin working around? This is kind of the core to an extent. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. You find a tobacco, you say, this is a great base.
Yeah.
This profile is a great base. And then you say, let's try to get a blend that is still balanced, but maybe have some predominant complexities out of this tobacco here. And a lot of times you find this tobacco, I love this tobacco, and I love this tobacco. You put them together, oh my God, let's not do that again.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a formula that you say, I like these three tobaccos, let's put them together. Like, obviously, you may end up saying, okay, we found the way between percentages and so on and so forth. But it's not necessarily you say, I love this one, and this one, put them together in this great cigar. Not necessarily.
Oh, we have to change the name of the show. Can't call it formula. We should call it The Way now.
The Way.
So Ralph, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Well, so I wanted to talk, like a two-part question about this number 2 Purito. So what do you get out of this when you're tasting this, and how would you utilize this particular tobacco in a blend?
Okay, so in this particular tobacco is what I would call, and I was telling Seth, I find it to be a middle of the road flavor profile, so to speak. So it would be something that I probably wouldn't emphasize. but I may use it to, like I said, complement. It's definitely a good cigar to complement. And depending on the blend that you're working with, and you say, you know what, let's try this here, and that's where it's got. Now, I wouldn't say, you know, I'm going to say, take this tobacco and say, all right, let's focus on this. No, not necessarily. You know, to me, one of the best tobaccos available today is Hamastrom. I think that's one of the best tobacco. It's a noble tobacco because the noble is what I said. It blends very easily with others. It's like the kid in the playground that can play with all the other kids and doesn't mess around. It's something that really has a lot of characteristics that I love. You know, it has the sweetness, it has strength when you need it, and it's a great tobacco to base your blend on and then work from there. So certain tobaccos have that quality. Others you want to say, okay, this is a complement. And, you know, and sometimes it's as simple as that. It's as simple as adding something that may enhance that complexity and no more than that.
Would you add this? I mean, for me, this is like, there's like little pepper spice. It's a little bit dry. I feel like I'd complement this with something that was more like, was richer or sweeter or something along those lines, just to add another layer. I mean,
well, again, yes. I mean, and back to the what we were saying about having two different flavors and saying, well, I have this that's a little earthy,
yeah,
or, you know, which is kind of what this can be. I want to add more sweetness. I want to add maybe a little bit more complexity, maybe a little bit more strength. And that's your goal. And that's what you work towards when you start blending. Now, whether you accomplish it or not, it's, again, a trial and error kind of thing. But yes, for example, if you have a blend that we go down there and say, okay, we're going to work on blends. And we have a project that we're doing. We're going to do, I would say, anywhere from 3 to 5 blends that we're going to start with. We have a nice little base. We like, these 3 are the ones that we want to work for. They're great. What do? What is the process after that? Well, number 1 process is make a ton of them, make 50, 100 cigars of each of these blends. And we like to blend our first cigar in a 6x52 or 6x50, a Toro size, because it's almost like the middle of the road where you can blend up to a bigger size like the Gordo and down to maybe a 44 or maybe even a Corona. So you have and plus it's a very popular size. So if you get that one right, you know, Robusto's easy because it's just a touch lower. And then the Gordo, you may have to adjust depending on how you want to present it. And you make 40, 50, 100 of each of these things. And I like to age them at the factory. That's where the production will age. That's where the environment will be the same environment as the full production. So the samples are also aged at the factory, 45 days, 60 days. And then it comes to the office, comes to us. And we have a group of guys, you know, our group that, okay, let's try this. Let's go ahead and start smoking this. And I like to smoke them in the morning, in the afternoon, at night. I take some on the weekend because our bodies, depending on whether you're stressed out or happy or sad or just had a fight with your wife or however it is, changes. So you want to really smoke it in different times during the day, different times during the week. And over a period of 2 or 3 weeks, you get, all right, this is what we think it was going to be. And sometimes you say, you know, after the aging process, after all this, it wasn't what we thought.
Yeah.
And that happens a lot. You can ask any manufacturer that they have smoked the best cigar in the factory. When it comes to the US and they try it again and they go through this process, they go, where did all that beautiful flavor go? You know, so it's not, sometimes it's frustrating and sometimes you hit it. Sometimes you hit it.
You know, if you have Bradley Rubin on the panel and he wonders where the flavor went, it's hiding in his mustache. So,
that's I went to, I've only been to Nicaragua once, and it was for cigar related, of course, right? Or else why would, I don't know, there's really no reason to go for me anyways. and we stayed at AJ's compound for like 4 days. And man, when I was there, I must have smoked through like 8-10 cigars every single day, and I felt like I had zero palate fatigue. All cigars tasted great. I brought those same cigars back to the States with me, and they just I didn't have that. I try to get my mind to think back to those beautiful 4 days, but it was very different.
No,
I don't know why.
No, it's exactly, and I don't think anybody can explain it. Honestly, I've been trying to explain it for 37 years, and it's funny how that does happen. And maybe because of the atmosphere that you're there, and you're in that, you're eating up all that atmosphere. You're in the tobacco industry, right in the center of it. So, but yes, I agree with you. It's 100% frustrating sometimes when you come back and you say, "What happened? What happened to this beautiful blend that we had?"
Imagine you bring the cigars that you really like in the U.S. back to like Nicaragua and see how much you love it.
We should bring the rollers here, see what happens to the other. Right. But that's part of the process, and that's part of the what we do day in and day out and year in and year out is trying to find those cigars that are very consistent and that you can say, wow, this is it. This is what we want. This is the one that can be our next line, our next brand, project A, project B, whatever it is. And, it is. It's frustrating sometimes, but you hit it. You hit it on the head. It's you experience exactly what we experience many, many times.
It's weird.
Just don't smoke cigars in the U.S. I'm just kidding. So what is the seed on this? I know it's in Nicaragua. Are you giving out that information?
It's a Criollo seed.
Criollo.
Yeah.
So when you so I don't know if tobacco, purchasing tobacco from farmers is similar to, like, for instance, like finding good grains for whiskey or like finding good grapes for wine, right? Like it's all about the quality of the tobacco leaves, right? It's all about the quality of the kind of grapes you could get or the grains perhaps, right, to make your whiskeys. So when you go out and search for these various tobacco leaves, is it like an industry known of what am I trying to say? Like where the guys have the best, like, let's say Condega Seco for Criollo seed in Nicaragua, like, or how does that work? Like, how does all that purchasing kind of work in that dynamics behind it?
I'll tell you, it's very, the biggest thing is really consistency of the grower. Using the same growers. We deal with factories that grow their own tobacco. When we go out and try to source something, you want to work with the same people, because it's not just the tobacco. It's, do you know their processes?
Yeah.
Do you know what they're doing? The quality of the soil, things like that. So you try to be consistent in what you're dealing with. It's like if you have your favorite restaurant, because you know that chef, that he always gives you what you want, your meal comes the way you expect it. So that's a big part of it, is that consistent supplier connection that is very important. And when you have new products, new fields, new things it depends on who you're dealing with and who's the one behind that. Do you trust that guy? Is it someone who is doing the proper things in the field to make sure that the tobacco is consistent and quality and all these other things? So it's not just, it goes way beyond just, going and saying, oh, this tobacco is great. No, what's behind it? And most of the guys that we deal with, Hugo at Raíces de Plasencias, Membreño in Jalapa, and it's people who have been doing this for a while, and they've been consistent year in and year out, that you stick with.
Yeah.
That you stick with. You know what I mean?
Should we, you guys want to move on, or you guys still?
Let's go to number 3. See,
number 3.
Seth, this whole 1, 2, 3 thing is not going to happen.
Yeah,
I love it. I love it. You know, this leaf is it's a little bit. I can't see it actually. I'm not gonna even. It looks prettier than the other one. It looks prettier than the other one.
It's darker than the other one for sure.
It doesn't have that. Yeah, it doesn't have that stank.
It looks richer, right?
It does.
Yeah, you talking about texture makes me all like. I never really paid much attention to honestly what most of you're saying, because I mean the reality of it is we don't get that kind of information, right? Which is why we're doing this show. We wanted to do this show, is truly getting the perspective of the blenders to talk about their viewpoint of blending and tobacco, right? So, you know.
Well, one of the things that you might, if I start talking about tobacco, is, you ask anyone, Alan or anyone in the office, you might have to shut me up soon enough.
No.
That's what we're looking for on this show. So don't worry about it at all.
This is tasty, man. This is tasty right from the get-go.
Yeah. This is one of those tobaccos that I call noble. That is
This is a noble tobacco.
That this tobacco really blends well. It has a lot of different characteristics that you can base a blend on. This is one of those that you say, wow, let's see what we can do with this. And we've been using this for a while. I mean, a long while. This particular one is in one of our, it's actually used in many of our original Tempest
Prensado.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's definitely more complexities and
Tempest first came out too, man.
The very first cigar event I went to was Alec Bradley event at Aaron. You might remember the shop. Remember, there's one in Menlo Park and called Knickerbockers. You remember that shop?
Yep.
Yeah, that was the very first cigar event I ever been to. That was when I first started. Cigars,
Seth, you want to take a guess at this one too?
Yeah, I bet you $100.
We're gonna pass this one around, man. Wait, so all right, so you've been using this for a while. You said you're using this in Tempest and Prensado?
Yes.
He said it was noble tobacco. Remember what he said about noble?
Yes.
Yeah, but listen, here's the thing, man. If I just say it, I'm going to be wrong.
No,
if I don't say it, I'm going to be wrong.
You already got wrong once. Say it again.
Is this Nicaraguan?
No.
He told you, man. I told you. Is this Honduras? This is Honduras.
This is from the Raíces farms in Trojes.
I was going to say that too, man. June. This is noble tobacco, though. So you use this in what? You use this in coil?
This is used in coil too, also. Yep. Yeah, it's actually in a lot of our blends.
This is really good tobacco.
Yeah, it's got like a kind of like a barbecue smokiness, but it's also got like a little sweetness to it. It's kind of like it's an interesting.
There is a little sweetness on.
There's definitely like a meatiness to it for me.
Yeah.
And this is particularly what I was talking about. So there's certain tobaccos, and this is one of them, and I think Hamastrana is the other one that you mentioned several things, sweetness, and you have some nice and some strength, some boldness in it. You have a lot of different characteristics from one tobacco.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where you can really go crazy with this tobacco, that you can put in a lot of blends and it will improve it because it's so it's varied in its characteristics of what it adds to a blend. And this is what I'm talking about, a noble tobacco that you can really use in a lot of different areas, and it's going to work.
Have you ever made, and if you have, and I'm totally wrong here, please forgive me. Have you ever made a Honduran, like a Troyes Puro?
We have not because of a lot of the wrappers comes from, we try to mix in some other country, usually, they might be predominantly Trojes.
Yeah.
We still may have a Nicaraguan binder or a Jalapa wrapper or something like that, but nothing that we have is 100% Trojes at this precise moment.
I was going to say, is there, and this isn't me being like critical, or is there a reason why? Yeah, is there a reason?
That's a great idea. Maybe I'll go back down and try it.
Yeah. Now I'm going to be critical. Why not, man? You should do. This is tasty.
Right.
Go
I mean,
do it.
yeah. I mean, an ultra his tobacco would be great, and we should explore that. I'll call it the set.
But do it Lonsdale, and then let me know how it goes. Let me know how it goes.
Lonsdale or Lancero or something like that.
No, don't do a Lancero. Just do a Lonsdale. But I mean, have you used the Troyes tobacco as a wrapper?
Yes. Yes, also.
Okay.
Absolutely. Usually we've used Visual and, like a Colorado Scudo, which is in the Tempest. So
it's a beautiful wrapper too on the Tempest.
Yeah. We have a lot of great wrappers come from Troyes also, and depending on the priming and where we want it, but we use that a lot also. We just like the region. I mean, the Raices, we got 3 farms. Raices have 3 farms there, beautiful farms. And they just opened up a farm in Hamastron, which is very exciting. In January of 2019 was the first crop there. So now we're trying to kind of learn that tobacco, because it's the same thing with it's Hamastron and everyone grows in Hamastron, but that's not necessarily that particular process in tobacco, the way it's going to be processed, cured, all that. So now we're having fun trying to see what the characteristics of this new farm is, to see how we incorporate it into new blends. And it's kind of exciting when you're trying, the Criollo seed part of it. I think we have some Corojo seeds in there too. So now it's great. Now you have this new toy that you want to play with. And the first part is learning tobacco. Let's see, how did this develop? How can we use it? Is it, the characters are a little different than what we have in Troyes or other Hamastron farms. And it's really now the learning phase of what we can do with it, and it's exciting now. And we were in the middle of doing all this, and February was the last time I was down there, and that's what we were kind of doing, is looking at the fermentation, and a lot of the tobacco was already coming out and ready to be used, and then boom, this thing hit, and we haven't really been down there in a while.
So is this Criollo?
This is Criollo.
1 for 6, guys. 1 for 6.
It's pretty bad.
1 for 6. So what is the soil like in Troyes? On the farms, are they? You said there's 3 farms. Troyes, are they all a little bit different?
Look, for example, Troyes. If you look at the map a little bit, Hamastron, the valley in Hamastron in Nicaragua, almost flows into Honduras, where Troyes is. So it's almost the same valley.
Okay.
But where the farms are, we've got some mountains next to it. It's the little microclimate is a little different. Kind of sandy soil, clay. It's actually red clay in amongst most of the Jalapa Valley going into Troyes. Like if you go to Esteli, you have that volcanic rich soil, and Condega is a little bit rockier and so forth. So the soils obviously make a big difference. The elevation, basically the microclimate in each of the regions, and that's what you can do with the same seed strain in these different areas and have completely different characteristics coming out of each of these areas, because there's so much more to just putting the cigar here or there. It's a big difference. It's a big difference where you are. And that's the beauty of it. Even in a plant, when you look at a plant and you have your ligeros, your visos, your secos, they have different characteristics, but the plant itself is the same flavor genetically. But if I give you a ligero to smoke, and it's very strong, obviously, as compared to the secos or the visos, even though the flavor is technically the same genetically, the perception that we have, because it's strong, we say, oh, that tastes different. No, it's just stronger. So the taste technically is the same, but the perception, because of the strength, for us, is, wow, that tastes strong. Strength isn't a flavor, but we perceive it as such. And that's the great thing about trying new cigars. And when people are experimenting, like, the aroma is very important. The wrapper is very important because you put the wrapper in your mouth. So it's directly affecting your taste buds. A lot of people say it's, wrapper 70% of the cigar. Not necessarily 70%. It could be 60, it could be 80, but the fact that it is in your mouth does influence what you're tasting. So if you have a tasty wrapper, a nice, great, tasty wrapper, wow, it's going to influence your taste buds a little bit more than the smoke of the fillers and the binders, because it's right here. You're actually tasting it in your mouth. So and when people are trying cigars and doing that, keep in mind, if you like a rich flavor, and you see a nice, dark Colorado cigar, that you're going to get a lot of that flavor in your mouth, whereby you have a very light wrapper, but you have a heavy filler inside. Obviously, the wrapper is going to be less influential in your experience, but it's still in your mouth. It's still, you want to know that flavor that you enjoy.
Yeah.
So it's we're all over the place when it comes to different experiences that smokers can have because of the variety. It's incredible, and that's the beauty of this business. That's why I love it so much. It's so dynamic.
I wish I know Aaron and Seth were, like, for instance, tasting like Jeff Bush, what's like FSG tobacco burrito, going through like what Terrence sent us for like Aganorsa leaf, and now tasting number 3. Like, I would love to purchase just these burritos. Like, I wish I'm obviously I'm in the minority of thinking this because, the burritos, they don't look nice, but taste wise, man, it's so cool. Like, I sometimes, like people do like Lancero samplers or whatever, right? Like, I wish more companies or people start coming out with burrito sampler, right? Use it as like a teaching machine, right? Like,
Right.
I would love that, but I'm sure sales wise, not that great. But to like fans that are true like enthusiasts, like, this is super awesome and geeky, right? And how do you really know? Because there's so much of this, like in the spirits world, coffee, etc., and wine even. There's this whole concept of like single origin, right? That people really love because they could really taste the terroir and unadulterated, juice, right? Or the coffee or whatnot, right? I've always wished that we would bring that concept to the cigar world. So
Well, we did once. I mean, Alan had a great idea a few years ago when we did our fine and rare, and we did a fine and rare blenders box. I don't know if any of you recall, where we have, fine and rare has 10 tobaccos. It's really complex and very difficult to make. And there was a blenders box where you have your 10 cigars, and then each of the 10 components in puritos were also in that box. That I think it was very popular. It was something that people experienced, not just the cigar, but every little component that made up that cigar. Mm-hmm. And that was a really good experience, I think, for some who were able to get it.
I think
that would be awesome.
Yeah, I think what's cool about smoking these things is then you start to find what you really love it. Like, when you guys have talked about like the Troyes tobacco in your blends, those are usually like the blends I gravitate towards, because it's like, yeah, I like that tobacco, but then when you get to smoke it by itself like this, you're like, wow, okay, so now you can really pick up those components in the cigar and you can see what else is on top of that, and you can really find
your brain says, oh, I know this flavor.
Yeah,
I know this flavor from that particular cigar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and that's one of the greatest. And then again, back to noble tobaccos. This is one of the perfect examples of literally you can take this tobacco and like you said, roll it up and sell it.
Oh yeah,
mm-hmm.
This is tasty.
Yeah, I think there's a greater space for that. I mean, like I've gotten into, for instance, bourbon quite a bit within the last 6-7 years. And, me joining these various enthusiast forums and whatnot and communities, like people talk about, it's not really like saying, it becomes less of I get XYZ flavors. It's more about, hey, this is, quintessential Buffalo Trace profile, or this, I get the peanuttiness from like Heaven Hill, right, or etc. Like it's a whole different vernacular that people use, and I think there's a lot of space in the cigar world to do that as well. And I personally love this part of it, but it's just not really talked about. It's not really disclosed out there. So.
Well, I mean, again, we're trying to sell a blended cigar, so it's not something like, and one of you mentioned it, what we sell is a blended cigar, so we talk about the cigar. But yeah, this is an important part of getting to that part, to the final product, is knowing these characteristics of X, Y, and Z, and seeing if you can put that together and get Y, and it's important. It's part of it, but not a lot of people experience it, and I'm surprised that this is you're right, not a great part of what most manufacturers do. Now we do have an event that we came up with a few years ago called the Deconstruction, and when we have these puritos available to our sales representatives, and they'll go and do this exact thing with consumers, and they love it.
Yeah.
So it becomes a really interactive event where we're doing basically what we're doing now, but in the same room. And then we actually get all the components or major components from a particular blend. And at the end of the night, you smoke the final product, and you kind of, what you said, start pulling out these little flavors that you smoked in the burritos. And it's a very popular event, very popular.
People like to learn. I mean, despite what people say, they actually do like to learn, and they learn about these things, and it's like, oh wow, there's more appreciation that comes with it as well.
Yeah.
Well, there's also, we're in an industry that I think, from consumers to manufacturers, they're very passionate about cigars. It's not something that is cold and even you're passionate about cars and things like that, but this is something that I think consumers really embrace, and the processes that we have to go through to get that final cigar on the shelf. I think a lot of smokers don't know what it takes, and if you've been down to the factories and you go from the seed to the farms, and then the farms to the curing barn, and then from there to selection and fermentation and aging, and then selection, and then what happens in the rolling arena, you have these worlds of different things where a million things can go wrong. So it's a constant vigilance on the farm. You can have a curing barn full of tobacco. If you don't turn it, if you don't rotate, if there's too much humidity, too little humidity, you may release the humidity too quickly and not have a good color on your wrappers. So many things in fermentation. You have to turn the pilones in a certain time. Selection, positioning in a cigar as they're rolling, a million things. And this is one of the few industries that in this circle, and you break one, the whole thing falls apart. It's almost perfection from seed to packaging. And if you don't get it all right, that finished product isn't what you wanted. So it's incredible. And I'd love for all cigar smokers to know that when they buy that cigar in a shop, what goes into that, just putting that in a shelf somewhere, what goes behind it, what is so many people involved, and so much years and of fermentation, of aging. I really want them to respect that and say, wow, it's not just a cigar. There's a lot that goes into this.
No, absolutely.
Am I geeking out too much?
No.
This is great, man. So this is noble tobacco. You said, Jalapa, that Corojo Jalapa is noble tobacco. What's another one that you'd say is noble tobacco?
Hamastron.
Hamastron.
Hamastron for sure. It's probably my favorite tobacco, and coincidentally, my uncle's favorite. And he's he's known in the industry for being a very, very, very good tobacco man. I learned a lot from him when I was working with him in the 80s.
Yeah.
And it so happens that, after I started kind of experiencing and learning myself, I ended up in the same place he did, and knowing, and Hammerstrong for me is really, really the great tobacco that you can really use in a variety of ways. And it's excellent. It has a lot of characteristics, just like you said. This can have sweetness. It has some body and all that stuff. So Hammerstrong is very similar to that, in my opinion.
Yeah.
All right, do we want to go to number one now?
I hope one's good. Come on, Ralph. Don't disappoint us with this one.
Let's go.
Number one means number one. The best.
Number one means number one, man.
Your
Looks
guys
like
say
D's running around.
1-1, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mine says 1-3. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Oh, I sent you the wrong thing. Sorry.
Guys, I'm not picking up those notes, man. I don't know what you're talking about.
Ralph, do you take hand in blending Alec and Bradley's cigars as well?
Well, they're really doing a great job, and they have great palates, both of them, and they're really trying to kind of create their own way. Now we talk a lot, and but they are really grabbing it and making it their own, with obviously collaboration with among, but they're really the ones that are spearheading what they want to present to the marketplace. And it's been really exciting for all of us to see that. I've been with Alan for 20 years, so we've to see them come into the industry and start developing as cigar men, it's been wonderful, honestly. And they are truly taking the bull by the horns and saying, okay, we want to create our own thing, and they've been very successful so far. Yes, with advice and so on, absolutely, but not taking it away from anything that what they have presented to the marketplace is what they want to present. And that's key, right? So they're making their mark with whatever help that we can give them, but it's their mark, and they're doing a great job. And honestly, we're very proud.
All right, Seth, what do you think?
Are you gonna go for this one too?
What am I, 1 for 6 right now?
Yeah.
If I get this perfect, what am I, 4 for 9? One more puff. It's gonna be the magic puff. Nicaraguan Esteli.
Right country.
Wow, you're so nice, Ralph.
Right country. This is from Jalapa.
Yeah, June. Right country.
Yeah, right country. I want to say Jalapa.
Yeah, 1 for 1. It's 1 for 1. This has got some spice to it.
Yeah, this is actually a ligero. So it's one of the upper primings before it gets selected to.
That's why I was thinking Esteli. And I honestly mean that. I'm not just bullshitting when I say that.
Yeah,
I feel like we're
nice
gradually,
body.
yeah.
But the flavor profile is a little bit more. If Esteli, you'll have a little bit more of an earthy flavor, a little bit more. I would say like I don't know. I call it like a low, darker flavor, so to speak. Heavier, but it's not bad. Not a bad comparison at all.
Jalapa and Troyes just seem, and I'm not criticizing other regions for this, but it seems more elegant. There seems to be a little bit more balance in the if you kind of said it's almost like one big valley. It seems like there's a little bit more balance, and it touches on a little bit of everything. You have sweetness, you have some spice with it. There just seems to be more to that region.
Well, the sweetness is definitely a part of it, and if you want to call it, yeah, I mean, you can call it elegant. It can be considered an elegant tobacco, where you can soften a blend, make it, a little bit more rounded. I definitely think that that's an accurate statement. Yes.
Yeah, I think it's fuller flavor and like more complex. Um,
There's more strength on this than the Troyos.
yeah, I feel like we're kind of gradually going up on strength, right?
It is a ligero.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we are, but when you if you taste this against the Troyes, we're completely different.
Yeah.
Very different
experiences. And that's kind of what I try to do is you've got three distinct characteristics in the three burritos that I sent you, where you can, my point is, or what I try to make is the variety, is that you have regions, you have primings, you have all these different things that you can work with, and that there's basically a limitless opportunity to create new cigars by using even similar tobacco because of this variety of texture and region. So, and then, we're talking about fillers here. Switch up the binder. You can have a single binder, you can have a double binder, you have your choices of wrapper. I mean, how many ingredients? It's a chef's, wet dream in a way, that you have all these things to work with. So that's why the variety of our industry is so great, and that's why I still emphasize is go out and try something new, and you'd be surprised what you get.
Is this Criollo as well, or?
This one is Corojo.
Corojo.
Did you see me mouth that like silently?
I saw it.
Yeah.
I saw it.
Okay.
I'll sign the affidavit if you have.
Shut up,
Jude.
I'm 1 for 1.
You're 1 for 1.
I'm 1 for 1.
I'll give you 2 for 2.
Okay. All right. Good.
That's why you're the man. So, which blend of yours is predominantly, would you say, is this tobacco really going to stick out in? Like, if I'm going to pick up something with Alec Bradley, where's this tobacco really going to pop?
Well, you mentioned it before, by the way.
See, there's one I got right there.
It's in Coyol.
Moment's over.
Okay. Moments. So this is also man, there's a reason why I love that cigar.
Yeah. And then it's funny, the two components that you enjoyed the most are the two in that particular blend.
Yeah. It's a great blend, that one.
Enjoy it. Yes.
Is that blend one of your more popular ones, you would say?
I wouldn't call it more popular. I think the blend that I think is more apt for a greater audience, put it that way.
Yeah.
I think that blend is the perfect balanced medium plus blend that I think anyone can pick up and enjoy. I think it's probably one of the most balanced ones that we have. And then in terms of the overall flavor components, the complexities of it, where everything is really working great, but yet it's not overwhelming in strength, but there's a lot of flavor. And there's, one of the things we say in our cigar business is, do you want strength or do you want abundance of flavor? And there's a difference. A lot of people, I want something strong, and then you give them something really strong. Go, whoa, I can't handle that. No, that's not. I think what consumers and real cigar smokers want is just this great flavor, a lot of flavor, and the complexities of that, and in the smoke, and in the palate, where you get all these things happening, and that is primarily what I think most guys want is flavor, abundance of flavor, not necessarily strength.
Yeah, I agree.
Plays a part in consumers' what they like, but it's for me, flavors is priority.
I think with strength, they just want like a sense of presence. They want like there to be something to it. It's not that, I don't know. I like flavors. But like you said, one of the reasons why I like it is it's a balanced blend coil. There's,
Right.
it's flavor focused in the sense that yes, there's body to it. Yes, there's some strength to it, but it's the flavors that are really showing itself and delivering throughout that cigar from beginning to end.
Well, one of the things that we talk about is also something that we call subtle strength. In other words, you're smoking a cigar and it's not impactful where you can smoke a cigar and say, wow, immediately that's a strong cigar, right?
Yeah.
But if you have a somewhat medium to full cigar, but kind of like the strength sneaks up on you because it's been really balanced, that subtle strength where you go, whoa, after smoking half a cigar, goes, whoa, that was stronger than I thought because it was balanced. But the strength was there, but not in your face. It wasn't that you light it and you go, oh, God, that's a bomb. So, and that's important too. You can blend strong cigars, and it's actually somewhat difficult to blend strong. It's not hard to blend strong cigars for strength alone. Now, let's do a strong cigar and balance it.
Yeah.
The trick comes in. So you can start a cigar and say, wow, this cigar is great, it's balanced and everything, and before you know it, you can't get out of your chair because it kind of sneaks up on you. And that's really again, I go back to balance. I go back to the enjoyment of the cigar without having to think too much about it, to fight it, but you just want to enjoy the experience. And then, however it comes out, whether it's strong or mild or however it is, it's about the overall experience, not just one component of the experience.
So coil has a lot of like Troyes, Criollo, and Jalapa Corojo. The Tempest, is that more Criollo focused?
That is more Criollo focused.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's Corojo in there too, by the way.
Yeah.
But again, it's all about the percentages. But you'll taste more of the Criollo there than you will the Corojo.
And the Prensado, is that more Corojo focused?
It's very similar to the Tempest, but the percentages and the profile is a little bit more full body. The wrapper is also different, so the wrapper has a lot of influence. If you notice that the Prensado should be a little darker, more like a Colorado Oscuro.
Yeah.
Versus a Colorado on the Tempest, which is very influential in the flavor. So it's even subtle differences in the wrapper where you go to a light Rosado Oscuro, Colorado Oscuro, and so on, and then Maduro. So you have that variety where you can actually pinpoint certain flavors just by the way you select the wrapper.
It seems like a lot of stuff with Nicaragua and even Nicaragua, it's become very Corojo focused. And maybe I'm incorrect in that. It seems like it's become more Corojo focused in the past, 8 years. But it seemed like there was this Criollo presence that has faded. Am I inaccurate in that statement, or?
It's hard for me to say of other manufacturers. For us, we've always had the presence of both.
Yeah.
So we don't see a big shift one way or another for us in terms of what we're doing. We've always kind of played around with both of those.
Mm-hmm.
Have we emphasized more one or the other? Not really, because we really want to just see what the blend does. Purposely, we haven't done it. I don't know if others have, possibly if that's what you've been hearing. But from our perspective, we've always played in both arenas.
Yeah, and I guess, the other, Luzione, the Cruzados used to be really Criollo focused, and then he discontinued them, and then he brought them back, and now they're more Corojo focused.
Well, that could also be the manufacturer has more of that available, which is probably the key on that.
Yeah.
Specifically him, but generally speaking, whether it's purposeful or not, it could be simply as that's what he preferred.
Yeah. Do you guys have your own farms?
We do not. We do
Do you
not
want to
do-
have? Do you want to have farms?
Honestly, depending on, not to say that we won't ever, but the suppliers that we have now are, like I said, very trustworthy. They've been doing the job that is needed for many, many years.
Yeah.
Is not something that we would not do,
Yeah.
but it's not in the foreseeable future from our point of view, at least not yet.
Yeah. No, I mean, I mean, it was one of these things. You guys have had really stable brands for such a long period of time, and you obviously have close relationship with, farmers and so forth. I was just, did you ever, I don't know if you want to call it getting into the game, but ever thought about, man, wonder if we could get into having a farm as well and just having that little stake in it as well.
Well, I mean, when you have a farm, so it's great, it's fine, but you still need the variety, right?
Yeah.
So it's no matter if you have this great farm, you still need the variety. So it's not to say that you won't use that, but would you use it more or less? Ultimately, the blend is what's going to tell us where to go. So whether we even use that product in a blend that we like, what do you do? Do you force yourself now to use that tobacco because it's your investment?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
where's our emphasis? I think is from my point of view very blend focused. Wherever that's the key. What's a cigar? And dealing with people we've dealt with for many, many years, we haven't found it necessary to do that or take that step because we are satisfied with those that have been with us for all this time.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely correct. It makes sense because there are the people who then start having farms and they're like, oh, this is my own farm.
Yeah, but what do you do with it? I mean,
well, you create a cigar with saying, hey, this is from Alan's farm, and you can sell, have a little cool romantic story with it and so forth. Get some photos of Alan on the farm.
Take a picture with the tobacco.
Playing with the tobacco. Oh, yeah, look at that. Yeah, that's mine, man. I grew that.
I'll let Alan know. Well, he's
just
probably
throw by him. He's probably watching like, that's a damn idiot. Jeez.
So if you guys still have 3 around, try smoking 1 and 3 together.
1 and 3?
If you want to truly find that you put them both in your mouth, or all 3, and see what you can. There you go.
All 3?
You can, and
you could mix up the combination and just get different stuff. So
correct.
Man, Aaron, you're smart, dude.
It's hard,
exercise my jaws.
That's right. You're used to it, June.
You guys are. Dang.
Needs practice. You got to warm up,
Yeah.
I'm going to keep it PG-13. You guys are so immature. Oh.
There's a lot more balance doing all 3 together. Man, I like all of these. These are, and I'm not saying that because you're on here with us, Ralph. I mean,
I know you. I would like to see what you when this is over. Man, those 3 cigars didn't even balance at all. I didn't want to say it in front of him, but yeah.
I don't necessarily.
Example of even the first cigar that you guys weren't thrilled about what it does to the blend, whether in and of itself may not be what you say. Wow, this is it, but in combination, it does balance something or add something to it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's just a lot more balance.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there with my oh, wow moment. These are great size. You can smoke these Motley Crue style. Have you ever done that, June?
No. What is that?
Smoke it, have it go through your nose and then blow it out your mouth, man.
Oh,
it's the opposite of retro hail.
That's like...
Oh, it'll mess your nose up.
Re-retro.
I'll show you when we're not on the air, man, because you'll be... It's re-retro. It's unretro. It's metro.
That's interesting that we have all this talk about like something Corojo based or like Criollo. The only other person, I mean, not that I talk to a lot of brand owners or like blenders that talk this much about tobacco, but I remember visiting Dion's shop and he talks very centric of like something that's more Corojo based or Criollo. Like he'll run through his lines with me, be like, this is more Criollo focused, this is more Corojo. Like he talks in that kind of a vernacular. So I found that kind of interesting.
Yeah, and every manufacturer has their own style and their own way. And not to say that it's right or wrong. Everyone just has to find their own way. And we've kind of found our way to really not really focus on a lot, rather than just what's the final product, what are we trying to accomplish, and what does that combination give us that we're happy with and that we want to present. So it's not so much, and we do try to, like, for example, when you have the Trojes or the Hammerstrong, especially the new farm, yeah, we want to see what that can do and maybe focus on that for a while and see where that takes us. You know, not to say that it's one thing or another, but since we have this new toy that we can play with, let's play with it.
Yeah.
You know? But not necessarily because we decide in advance. It's just we have this opportunity. Let's go with it.
Have you ever worked with? Well, this is probably yes, but is there a tobacco that you've worked with that you've tried to work with that you've just never released something with, like whether it be a wrapper from a funky country or something along those lines?
There was a tobacco from Paraguay that we never got anywhere with. That it was just not. It just didn't get anywhere.
Did it smoke cool on its own, or?
From what I remember, this was years ago, I wasn't thrilled too much about it, but you know, it just didn't go anywhere. And it happens, you know, and there's some tobaccos that you work with that you immediately love, and you know, like, you know, Cubita comes to mind, which is the Colombian tobacco, but the way it's grown in co-ops and stuff like that, the consistency sometimes isn't great, but it's still a good tobacco to work with. And we have it in one of our brands, but some tobaccos are easier to work with, some tobaccos are not. Certain tobaccos are, you know, harder to get, less yield, so you got to look at that too. I mean, this is still a business. You have to, you know, you have this great tobacco, but the yield is 30%. I mean, you can't use it. You know, just the price structure won't work, you know, so there's a lot of factors involved.
How often do you talk to other blenders in the industry? Are you guys friends, or is there a lot of animosity amongst each other?
Well, you know, honestly, no. The opportunity to talk to anyone else is always available. Remember, this business is a tiny business compared to most industries. So
yeah,
I think in general we are very friendly. We're friendly competitors to a certain extent, and I don't think I've ever had a problem talking with anyone about anything in this business, because we're so open with each other. You know, I mean, this is a very incestuous business. You know, you have growers that make their tobacco, that make cigars, but also sell tobacco to this guy, and so on. So, you know, this is a lot of things happening. It's almost like a big family helping each other out. So I have never found that problem in our industry, where you can look at a table and see, you know, 5 different manufacturers having a drink and just talking about stuff, where you don't see that in any other business, in any other industry. And that's one of the greatest things about this business is, you know, since I was in it, I mean, it's competitors, but, you know, friends too. You know, and I would love everyone to smoke my cigars. I know that's not realistic, and we just, as an industry, you know, there are very good quality cigars in the market from us, from other manufacturers. And that variety is what keeps our industry healthy. And that's important. That's very important, to keep that variety, that competition, because it forces us to do better. So it's great when we have this interaction with each other, and like I said, friendly competition, but ultimately we all try to, you know, get the consumers and the smokers to, here, try ours.
Another question for you. So, you know, there's a term that gets thrown around, and it's, you know, highly debated. So, like, you know, listen to certain other shows and whatnot, people talk about a master blender. So, you know, how do you define master blender And what is like? Do you consider yourself a master blender? And what is a master blender? Why is it so? Give your take on the definition.
I don't like the term personal, because the collaboration of creating a cigar, no one person in general, in my opinion, even I may create a base, or the boys are creating a base. I go to them, they come to me, I go to Alan, I go to his, we're all doing something as a group. I may be the orchestra leader, maybe, but master blended to me is like this guy, sitting in a dark room, creating these combinations and formulas, with the mad scientist. No, there's thousands of opinions that you want to listen to and say, do you like this? Do you like this? I mean, am I going in the right direction? I mean, you have the guys that are living the tobacco day to day. If you don't listen to them, you're screwed.
Yeah.
One of the things that my uncle told me a long time ago, when I was first getting into this business, is in this business, if you find someone who says, I know it all, I'm the guy that knows everything about tobacco, run. Run. Because you're always learning. And you're always experiencing new things. And one of the reasons why I learned so much is very simple. I shut my mouth and listened to those who knew better or more. And still today, I listen to those who knew more. And that's the key, because no man is an island in this business, in my opinion. In my opinion. So truly a collaboration of everyone in the office, of the people that work with this day in, day out. I may have a question. What is this new wrapper? I have never seen it. Explain it to me. Where have you used it before? How is it progressing? Can we try it? What do you think about this? That's how we do our every blend is a collaboration. So master blender, please, no, not even close. I really don't like the term, because especially with so many people involved in this industry, and I'm very passionate about those that toil and work day to day. When you go to the factories and you go to the farms, and without that guy who puts that seed on the ground or in the seed beds, the guys who pick the tobacco. I mean, there's so many people that are involved in getting that cigar, and that's what I was saying before, to the shop. And you can see that this is a big undertaking of many people to get to that end product. And I'm very happy to be part of it. And I think everyone should be, even the cigar smoker, the avid cigar smoker is part of that. It's part of that cigar. When he smokes that cigar, he is that is hundreds of people that are presenting that to him, and I want him to know that. And it's really interesting. And we're a very small business. It's still a handmade product. What can you say about that with any product that even in where you are? Look around you. What's handmade around you? Yep. It's an artisan. This is the artists that are creating these things for us. So, tangent. Sorry.
No,
that's right.
No.
Ralph
Just don't encourage the viewers.
Himself.
Don't encourage the viewers. No, I'm just teasing. Don't encourage those average cigar smokers.
Yeah.
So Ralph, when you're going through the blending process and you're creating those test blends, like you said, that you make multiple different variations of these cigars, and you're gonna age them and things like that. How do you document those different blends so that once you get kind of narrow it down, you can go back to those and recreate those if you need to?
Obviously, it's the formula or the ingredients are, here's the ingredients, here's the wrapper that we use, the binders that we use, 1 or 2 binders, here's the percentages, here's sometimes as detailed as the lot of a certain farm. That's where this is coming from. And you can be as specific as that. So obviously the ingredients or the formula is on paper. So obviously, and again, the trust factor, right? So you go back and say, this is it. So now we go back and we're going to do a production of, 200,000 cigars. Now we go through the selection process, making sure that the selection process is properly done, that the blending to the rollers is properly done, so then you can maintain that consistency. But it all comes down to that formula. But where do the tobaccos come from? Making sure that you have enough tobacco. One of the things that I always ask and say, okay, I want to use this tobacco. Can you do X number? Do you have the ability to give me enough tobacco to, if we have 1 million cigars of this? Very key, because if you're looking at a worldwide release of a product and you have 3 bales of tobacco, you ain't going to use that one for the worldwide release.
Right. Yeah.
So, all that comes into play, and it's taken into consideration depending on the project too. So if you want to limit it, okay, you know what? We can use those 2 bales and do a half a leaf or a full leaf and still have 20, 30,000 cigars for a limited. So that comes into play when you have those specific little short runs or leftover tobacco from, the crop from 19 whatever, you know what I'm saying? So you're flexible. But when you have a worldwide release and you need product, you make sure that whatever you're going to do is going to be consistent. It's going to be available consistently from here to hopefully 40 years from now, with certain parameters. But you have to make sure that everything's in place is what I'm trying to say.
I'm sorry, Aaron.
Go ahead, Seth. Go ahead.
No, you got to follow up.
Yeah, so you're kind of talking about if you were going to take this blend is going to be something that's ongoing, so regular production for many years. What's the process that you go through to be able to maintain that blend over time when you're having to go through different crop seasons and things like that?
Well, that's one of the things that is I compare it to the wine business, right? So the wine can say this year.
Right.
And that 2017 or to 2018, there's slight variations. We can't do that. Whatever the cigar is, the smoker wants consistency, and it should get the consistency. So when crop changes, one of the things that is important is to make those slight adjustments in the blend to replicate the balance and the flavor profile of the previous year or the previous 2 years, depending on your inventory, how far it lasted. So yes, that's it. That's very important. The exact blend today may not be what it originated, the exact blend, but it's the same components. Maybe, you had to add a little bit of a higher priming or a little thicker. Maybe you went from a Viso of crop 2 years ago was thinner than the crops today, so you're going to come down a little bit. Maybe you're going to use a Seco because that flavor still matches, or the binder is a little, you adjust the binder. Think all these things that you can do to get within a certain profile. Now, no one is in the cigar business. You're not going to go to a profile like this. You have to have a certain profile range because it's a handmade product. But within reason, this cigar tastes the way it was a year ago, 2 years ago, where the profile is dead set on. You don't want to go too far here. You don't want to go too far on this side, but within a parameter, you're saying this is the profile that we need. And you do adjust for that. When any crop or any tobacco changes, you make your adjustments.
Yeah, that's the question. It's like, you talk about like parameters. So it's like, let's say you have like, right, this year's release is 0 and you do plus or minus 10 hypothetically for next year.
Right.
So you really have to be careful, because if you go like next year and you say, you're at hypothetically -5, that's not the new basis though, because then you're going to keep on deviating. You're going to keep deviating. Now, do you guys keep kind of track of like every vintage? I guess you could say it's vintage. Like
we have some of the same tobacco or cigars that we've had in other years, but again, you also you run into the aging process.
Yeah.
So for example, aging is great, and some cigars age really, really well, especially the higher mostly the medium to full cigars, they age very well. So think about something like this: when someone is aging a product, one of our products, for example, and he's aging it for 2 years in a cedar humidor, and he tries it in 2 years and go, oh my God, this cigar is so different than what it was. It's better. It may be better. It may be just different. But if you think about it, what the manufacturer presented to you was what it was. So it's not necessarily the brand. Not to say it's worse. Great. I love people that collect cigars and age cigars because it really shows them how a cigar may be able to progress. And some cigars don't age very well and actually diminish in flavor, but it's good for, if you're really into cigars, to see what happens to a cigar after a year or after 2 years in your humidor, well kept. Because another thing too is humidity. A cigar within a certain parameter of humidity maintains the flavor. But when you have too much humidity, as a matter of fact, in a cigar, it masks flavor, where you're saying, where's all that flavor that I have? And if you go too dry, you're basically smoking dry grass. So it's very important to maintain that humidity level in its proper parameters to continue to enjoy that cigar.
I never smoked dry grass.
Oh, believe me, you get a cigar that's about 9% humidity.
You're full of shit. You smoke dry grass every fucking day.
My grass ain't dry, man. My grass ain't dry. So, no, I mean, so
PG, Seth.
yeah, PG. We're still rocking the PG-13s. So, which one of the cigars, of your cigars, do you think ages, in your personal opinion, do you think ages the best?
Well, I don't know if I can pick one out particularly, but I know that Tempest will age well. Pensado, anything of our medium to full, will age well. Blind Faith, which is Alec and Bradley's first cigar, ages well. So yeah, there are some that really age well, like our Connecticut. I wouldn't bother with that one. Obviously, but yeah, anything that you find medium to full should age very well. And again, maintaining proper humidity and so on and so forth. But that's in general terms.
Yeah.
The stronger the cigar, the better the age, because it's not gonna peak and come down too quickly.
Yeah.
Of course, they do that.
Which happened. Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Have you guys ever? And this is kind of going back to an earlier topic when we talked about like vintages and so forth, and it's modifying the blend to have it be within the parameters. Has the concept ever come up of like saying, you know what, we're going to leave it the same, but we're just going to have different vintages? Or because that really, to me, is more really kind of in the wine direction.
Right.
But do you think the cigar consumers are just going to be like, no, man, it doesn't smoke like a Tempest? You're like, no, man, it's the same stuff. It's just different vintages.
I wouldn't necessarily. Well, first of all, a vintage is the entire cigar from that year. The entire cigar from that particular year, which we don't. There may be some fillers that you use for the previous years and so on, but a vintage is everything from that particular year is in that cigar.
Yeah.
So as different crops change, you can still do vintage, and you may be able to match the flavor exactly. Not to say that you can't, but if you don't, then that's the new vintage. So it becomes more of the wine business, where you have a little different flavor, and that's okay if this is a vintage line. The 2010 may not be 2005. It may smoke completely different because that year it rained too much. Whatever, the tobaccos came out differently. And not to say again that you can't adjust the primings or anything to match it. But if you take the exact same formula, and that year happens to be that the Vizos were a little washed out and they're a little bit lower, or it was drier, and there's variations in the plant. No, it's going to be different if you try to match it exactly.
Yeah. That'd be cool to see. I don't want you guys to like bankrupt your company trying to do that concept, but you should do it. I just want to see like 5. It would be cool to see 5. I mean, come on, guys. You know, it'd be kind of cool just to see 5 years of
Yeah.
it. I'm not saying you should like invest a lot of time into it, but let's talk about that. Let's make something.
I'll bring it up in tomorrow's meeting. How's that?
There you go.
Just give me the number. I'll call in.
We got a pitch here. We got a pitch here.
Just put me on Zoom.
No, it's an interesting concept. Let's face it. It's an interesting because then you can see some of the progression of flavor. I mean, from a conceptual point of view, you're saying, okay, this was 1999 and 2000 and 2001, or even every 2 years.
Yeah,
you a little bit more variety. It's not a bad. It's an interesting concept, that's for sure.
And that's where I'm like, it's just it's one of these things from a. I don't want to say it's a purist, but it's kind of like that wine concept of just seeing what it would do and like the change. Because I imagine that it's going to fluctuate all over the place just because of weather.
It definitely can, but it can also get worse, I mean,
yeah.
So, and that's, sometimes like in wine, it's 2017 was great, but 2018, oh my God, that was terrible.
Yeah.
So, obviously within parameters that you still want to present a decent cigar. Not a bad concept.
June, why are you giggling, man? What are you guys making fun of me for?
Nothing. I'm just looking at Coop's fucking comments.
Coop's making fun of me in the chat room.
No, he's not. He's talking about. He's like, this concept of vintage is the reason why Pick a Cigar of the Year should not be limited to new releases.
Oh my gosh, Coop! Enough of the Cigar of the Year stuff.
Coop.
Focus on the show, June. Don't get distracted by Coop.
Yeah, that's true.
Come on,
My
this
bad.
is Ralph's time.
I slipped on that one.
Yeah. So Ralph, I think earlier you mentioned that you guys work with 4 different factories. Can you tell us what those are, or if there's ones you can't share, that's fine as well.
We work with the Plasencias in both Honduras, Nicaragua. We work mostly, a lot of our products come with from the Raíces Cubanas factory. We recently started with Jesús Fuego in Nicaragua.
Yeah.
But literally, I would say 60% or around 60% of our product comes from Raíces Cubanas, which we've been dealing with we're basically family and we collaborate a lot in many things together. But yeah, we still have the Occidental Reserve from Davidoff in Dominican. We still have that in our portfolio. We just started with the Gatekeeper and the collaboration with the boys and Ernie and then Nelson Perez Carillo. So that was now a new factory that we deal with. So that's one of the greatest things for us, not to be trapped maybe in growing out and having our own factory, because we can really go wherever we want and work with different people and discover new things that maybe we're not used to in our parameters. And that's what the boys are doing, which is great because they're really interested in expanding their mind in terms of what kind of tobaccos they're going to work with and what kind of profiles they're going to do. So it's really exciting for them and for us to see them and having them do all these things. I mean, the Gatekeeper is an excellent cigar.
Mm-hmm.
Personal favorite blends. So preferably stuff that's out in the market right now that, if I haven't tried it, we could go buy it and try it.
From our portfolio, I mean, right now, and I'm all over the place when it comes to our blends, obviously, because we're smoking constantly for quality control and so forth. But I do a lot of one of my go-tos has always been Black Market. Mm-hmm. It's one of my favorites. Always been one of my favorites. The Esteli, which has a completely different profile, is also very nice. If you haven't tried our Black Market Esteli, is phenomenal. The New Magic Toast is also a phenomenal smoke. So. Let's go back to Coyol.
Yes.
If anyone
let's go back there.
If anyone hasn't tried Coyol, that is I think something that everyone should try. It's that cigar that I think everyone would love and be part of their rotation. I think it really gives you a little bit of everything. Like Seth was saying, about the complexities and the balance and the sweetness and all these and strength. And so let's go with that one.
There's a wide variety of. I mean, you have like a Lancero. It's like a Petit Lancero, and you have like a Robusto. I mean, you can really pick up, different, filler to wrapper portions throughout that.
Yeah, and as you get tighter on the cigar, down from a 42 and a 41 or smaller cigars, obviously it's very, you're not going to have the exact same blend. First of all, the wrapper is influencing you more on that. Like if you take a Corona and you take a Gordo of the same cigar, of the same blend, you have a large percentage of filler as compared to the wrapper on a Gordo, as opposed to a Corona, where the influence of the wrapper is greater. And a lot of times, depending on what you want to present, a lot of the Gordos, 60 ring gauges, are going to smoke a little
softer.
It's a little softer, I would say, than a Toro Robusto and the smaller priming and the smaller cigars, simply because of the quantity of filler. It's simply just a volume type of thing. So you may have to blend a little bit differently the Gordo from your Toro to get that same impact or body that you had. And as you go down, you may have a completely different blend in terms of proportion when you go down to a 41, 42, 43.
That's really cool when that happens.
So let's talk a little bit about Candela. So you guys have the Filthy Hooligan, the Shamrock. What are your thoughts on Candela generally? And then how did you kind of work it into those blends?
Well, the black market Hooligan was, Candela is basically the process of sucking the moisture out very, very quickly of the tobacco in the curing barn, and basically setting the chlorophyll, keeping it green.
Right.
So you're basically, and that's one of the things that we try not to do on the regular production. So you don't want a dry atmosphere to suck that moisture up, and then you have a green wrapper when you don't want one. So the flavor of Candela is, I guess, very particular.
Right.
Let's call it
that's
that.
a politically correct way to say it.
So, Candela was huge in the 70s, and 60s, 70s, up to part of the 80s. It was huge, Candela. Now, what I like about our barber pole is that now that is not as, we have an Habano and the Candela working together. And in the Shamrock, now we have 3 different wrappers. Mm-hmm. So I think that the influence of the Candela in our barber pole and in our Shamrock is not as much. And I think it's actually a better cigar. It's a little bit more balanced cigar than the original Hooligan, which was pure Candela. Unless and actually, our Candela, if you remember, and you may not, we aged it a little bit, so it wasn't that bright green that you see the Candela initially from the fields, which is really, just green all over the place.
Yeah,
it was a little bit off color, but it really toned down for me that Candela flavor, which I thought it was a better cigar than just grab it from really, really green and put it on there.
And all the 3 wrappers on the Shamrock really pop. At least in my experience smoking them, you can pick up the Candela. Was that a Habano and I think a Connecticut or a Maduro or?
It's a Maduro. There's 2 Habanos and the Candela. Very light Habano.
Yeah.
Then a darker Habano, and then we go into the Candela. And yes, it really goes all over the place. It really gives you a lot of different flavors and tones, and it's really popular. It was one of the things that we went from barber pole, and he said, well, how can we change this? After having the Hooligan barber pole for a while, well, let's go to 3. And we did that, and it was a hit. When we first did it, and I think we had 500 or 600 boxes limited. It was like done. But It's been very popular. Very,
It's
very
become,
popular.
Does it become a tripole when you have 3 on there? Is that a tripole or is it still a barber pole? There's the things
The tri-wrap.
It's a tri-wrap.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So when are you guys going to do a 100% Candela cigar? It'd be pretty funky.
I'll let you know. How's that? I don't know.
I'll keep asking. No,
He's gonna. He wants to come on the call. He's gonna take the whole
Yeah.
call and he's gonna pitch like 8 projects. So,
dude, that would be.
Vintage,
Listen,
we got vintage. We got all Candela.
vintage all
Flores.
Candela.
yeah.
You know, I'm telling you, I'm calling you for new projects.
You know, as much as I enjoy Candela, the thought of an all Candela cigar disgusts me. It's a little much, I think.
Well, I mean, you know, it's bottom line is to get Candela, so you're basically in the curing bar. So if you want filler, wrapper, binder, the whole thing Candela, it's all basically the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, so no, it may never happen.
Oh yeah. It'd be crazy to see a green foot too on a cigar. You know what I mean?
Right, when you're looking at it from
You're
the
like,
edge.
whoa,
Yeah.
this is trippy.
And another unique cigar you guys have is like the diamond rough cut. How did that kind of come about?
Well, we're kind of experimenting something. A lot of times, you know, we play around, right? So there's, what can we do? What do we got here? What do we got? So, you know, there's box press.
Yep.
But what can we do something a little different? So it just came out of playing. Sometimes you just go down and you play. You know, and you go, hey, let's try this, let's try that. You know, let's try a wrapper up here, wrapper down there with this. And we actually created a very unique way of molding that cigar, which is, it took a little while to figure it out. And, you know, it was like, again, it was something that we thought was cool. It was interesting. We liked the Nicapuro blend. We thought it was a good idea, and it actually did very well. And this year, we actually shifted that to our Black Market Esteli Diamond, just to change up, you know, the blend. The molds are being used the same, the size is the same, but now we have the Esteli blend in there, and we did the pre-sell. It's done very well.
Nice.
But again, that's one of the things. A lot of times you go down there with no particular plan, and you just start playing.
Yep.
And you'd be surprised what comes out of those things, you know. And I remember way back when we were down at the factories, I was with Alan, and he goes, we were playing around, and he tries a cigar that we were blending and stuff, and he gives it to me, and he looks at me, and I'm smoking the cigar, and wow. And he points at me and goes, Black Market. And it was just like, wow, yes, great. Yeah. And then we went through the whole process of testing it, and it actually came out very, very well. And that's you know, still our biggest brand worldwide.
Nice.
So it was one of those times that we were just playing. So you never know what you come up with. So sometimes if you don't have a project, it turns out really great.
Yeah. Nice. All right, Junior, Seth, you have any more questions? We can let Ralph go so we don't take up the whole evening.
These burritos should also be marketed as great winter smokes. You know, people always say, oh, it's too cold in wintertime. We need good winter smokes, burritos.
There you go.
There you go. Well, we do have our short series sampler with all little cigars for the winter, and it's done very well. But yeah, I tell you, we got a lot to think about. We got 4 or 5 projects just out of this conversation.
Just
unbelievable.
The juices just flow, man.
Send Seth your Zoom meeting for next meeting.
Yeah, just let me know.
Yeah, we'll set that up. Be available next week.
I'll be messaging you guys. Hey, I'm not getting in, guys. What's wrong?
Where's our business card?
What's up? This code's not working, man.
Oh,
I'm gonna light up this coil, man.
There you go.
nice.
We can let Ralph go.
All right, Ralph, we want to really thank you for your time today. It was been very educational. I'm sure we can do another 3 shows on these topics and things like that. So we'd love to have you back in the future when you have some time.
My pleasure. I had a great time, and I mean, I'm available when I can, but this has been wonderful.
Great.
We're
Thank you,
gonna
Ralph.
do
This is
Amazon
great.
Prime series.
There you go. A whole series on this.
That's right.
That'd work out perfect.
You guys stay safe.
All right, you too. And hopefully that you get back down to the factory sooner rather than later. I know you're
Right, and
Jones
hopefully
going to get back down there.
Hopefully we can get together and actually shake each other's hands one day.
That's right, exactly. I know
can
Alan
bump
likes to
up-
keep you locked in this
we can
back
bump
room somewhere
elbows.
and nobody has access to you, but I'm glad that we were able to get you for a few hours.
Yeah,
That's where he keeps his master blender in a dark room, with all the tobacco.
That's right.
All right, guys. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks
Thanks,
so
so
much.
much.
Ralph. Stay
All right,
safe,
thanks
man.
everybody that tuned in. We will catch you on the next one.